How many of you have been to SeaWorld and seen the Shamu shows? Many of us, including myself, have only hoped to be the lucky audience member that gets picked to interact with Shamu the killer whale. Although I was never that lucky audience member, I remember sitting in the splash zone with my aunt and getting really wet, and I have pictures to this day of that event. In 2014, attendance at SeaWorld Orlando decreased significantly, dropping by 1 million people in the year that followed the release of the documentary Blackfish. This data was found in the article Blackfishing for Buzz, The Rhetoric of the Real in Theme Parks and Documentary, written by Stephen W. Schoen and published in the Journal of Florida Studies in 2016. My goal today is to inform you all of the history of SeaWorld's orca shows and the events that led to the reformation of these shows. First, let me explain about the history of SeaWorld and its orca shows. The first SeaWorld was built along Mission Bay in San Diego, California. It was originally planned to be an underwater restaurant, but was soon expanded into that of a zoological park, and its gates opened for the first time in 1964. SeaWorld quickly became known for its Shamu the Killer Whale shows. According to the 2014 PBS Frontline story, A Whale of Business, found on the PBS website, Shamu was the first successfully caught live orca. She was brought to SeaWorld in San Diego in 1965 and was the first in a long line of Shamus who performed in the SeaWorld shows. The success of SeaWorld and its orca shows continued for almost 50 years, with all subsequent performing orcas taking on the name Shamu. In 2013, almost 9.5 million people visited the two SeaWorld parks in Orlando and San Diego, where Shamu, the killer whale, shows had been the main attraction. There are now 23 orcas living among the three SeaWorld parks. Now that I have discussed the rise of SeaWorld, I will discuss its fall and its subsequent reorganization of the orca shows that it produces. SeaWorld has had to adjust the way it operates as a result of tragedies, the Blackfish documentary, and legislation. I will start by discussing deaths and other incidents caused by orcas at SeaWorld. According to an article on the Whale and Dolphin Conservation website titled Tilikum and the History of Wild Orca Captures, written by Colleen Weiler in April 2016. Tilikum, an orca captured from the wild at a young age, had been linked to 3 deaths, 2 of which occurred at the SeaWorld in Orlando. Tilikum is the probable killer of a man who had snuck into the tank after hours and was found with bites and bruises all over his body in 1999. In 2010, Tilikum killed a trainer during a show in front of a live audience. Animal activists blame his unethical capture and treatment as his cause of his aggression. After these deaths, the release of the 2013 documentary Blackfish, directed and produced by Gabriella Cowperthwaite, continued to have had an astoundingly negative effect on how people felt about SeaWorld's orca programs and shows. In this film, SeaWorld is accused of mistreating orcas. First, it is accused of buying orcas who were taken from the wild and thus promoting the practice. The film also accused SeaWorld of keeping their orcas confined in tank spaces that are too small and forced the orcas to perform on command. In the year following the documentary, attendance to the 2 biggest SeaWorld parks, Orlando and San Diego, dropped almost 1 million from about 9.5 million to 8.5 million. Animal rights activists pressured in 2016 got California to pass legislation that bans breeding of orcas in captivity and also bans the circus-like shows that they are subjected to. Finally, SeaWorld has implemented changes that it hopes will bring the public back to its parks. They are no longer breeding orcas at any of the 3 parks, which they agreed to before the California legislation banning it. They are in the process of phasing out their famous theatrical orca shows and replacing them with orca viewing, and education instead. SeaWorld San Diego has already stopped these shows, while SeaWorld Orlando and San Antonio will stop performing these shows by the end of 2019. The new orca encounters at San Diego include killer whales up close tour and dine with orcas. SeaWorld has released new ads focusing on their animal rescue and rehabilitation efforts, along with new website SeaWorld Cares, also focusing on its wildlife preservation efforts. Even with these changes, however, admissions to SeaWorld has continued their decline during the first half of 2017. As my speech is coming to an end, I hope that you enjoyed learning about SeaWorld's orca programs. I hope to have informed you about the rise and fall as well as the future of their orca shows. Now you should understand how tragedies, the Blackfish documentary, and declining attendance have caused the restructuring of SeaWorld's signature orca shows. I'd like to end with a statement from SeaWorld's website, SeaWorld Cares, copyrighted in 2017. SeaWorld has ended its killer whale breeding program, making the orcas in our care the last generation. Our whales are still here, as they will be for many years to come, living and thriving under the best veterinary care.